All right, I'm just going to give my quick post-fight thoughts to Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Um, let's talk about this. So, Jake Paul, I can't be too critical of him because at the end of the day, right, this is a guy who really, well, he's a YouTuber. That's how he got famous. That's how he made a name for himself. And he's obviously making good money from boxing. He obviously has his promotional outlet, MVP, which they're doing a big show on the 11th of July in New York City. It's the day before the Ring Magazine show. It is an all-female card. It has Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano Tree on it. It has people like Ellie Scottney on it. So he's doing great in that sense, right? And as I said, he could have chose an easier profession because boxing is extremely difficult, you know. Even if you're someone like Jake Paul who has the luxury to be able to do, full training camps, he doesn't have a job, obviously, in that regard, YouTube and stuff like that, but you know what I mean, a day job, a 9 to 5. So he can commit full time to this. It's still extremely difficult, physically and mentally. It's a difficult sport to be in. So again, and it's dangerous. So he could have chose an easier way to make more money and make a name for himself, but he chose to do this sport. That takes some cojones in of itself, right? So I ain't going to be too critical of him. But, the Mike Tyson fight aside, because that was just farcical. This one right here, he was in there against Chavez Jr., 11-year age difference between the two. Chavez, former world champion at 160 pounds. He was the weight bully before it was cool to be a weight bully, so to speak. It's not really that, but everyone seems to do it now. But back then, he was really the pioneer of it because he was fighting guys like Andy Lee. Andy Lee was significantly better than Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but he couldn't do anything because he was outweighed by over a stone on fight night. This guy was massive at 160 pounds. Went to 168, went to 175, now finds himself at cruiserweight. He looked absolutely awful in there, he really did. He barely threw any punches in there against Jake Paul for the first, 8 rounds, it seemed. Like, he literally didn't do anything. Jake Paul was absolutely sweeping these rounds. His punch selection, Jake Paul, I have to say, is pretty good. Again, he's not a world level operator, and we know that. He's already lost to Tommy Fury, actually, to be fair, and I will say to be fair to Jake Paul, right? He lost to Tommy Fury 2 years ago, but at least Jake Paul has actually gone on and done something since then. He's gone on and, kept somewhat relevant. He's trying to make fights with Canelo Alvarez, people like that. He would have got annihilated, but at least he's still trying to do something. And you can see he is actually improving ever so slightly, whereas Tommy Fury just doesn't seem to want to do anything. He just looks for these big money fights against the likes of Jake Paul and KSI while fighting obscure opponents in Hungary and stuff like that. So at least he's actually doing something where Tommy Fury isn't doing anything. There you go. Shot selection is not bad from Jake Paul. Seems to be a decent amount of power there. Naturally, he's very athletic, so there's a lot to kind of look at and say you can work with, but he's limited, very, very limited fighter. Chavez Jr. on the other hand, again, weight bully at 160 pounds, Nepo baby, and he is the quintessential Nepo baby because you can have fighters who, they come from privileged backgrounds. Conor Benn, prime example, where Conor Benn is someone who, when things don't go well, he throws the toys out of the pram. That's the way it is. He was brought up in, privilege. The problem with that is, and it's like the old saying, and it's a very, very true saying. It's extremely true, actually, when you think about it, that hard times, how does it go? It's like hard times make hard men make good times make weak men. It's something like that. Essentially what it means is that if your dad had to struggle to make something of himself, you don't know the struggle he went through because you don't have to do it. Because you're seeing the benefits of his work, his success. So he's working so you don't have to go through that. But that hardened your dad. It made him something. It made him a man. Whereas you're just remaining a boy. Simple as. And with someone like a Conor Benn, although he hasn't, in the ring, he certainly, has, a big heart and, big cojones in the ring. There's no fear. When things get tough for Conor Benn, throw the toys out of the pram. Same with Chavez Jr. Difference being is, Chavez Jr. in the ring, outside the ring, yikes. The guy has no heart. The two knockout defeats were to, from Farah, who was the second? Oh, Danny Jacobs. Quitting both those fights was beat 4 years ago by an ancient Anderson Silva, who was an MMA guy. I know he did have a bit of a background in boxing, but you get what I mean. It's like, what the hell? What the hell? So, and again, you see that a lot of the times, it's a true thing, because a lot of people would say that very few fighters can emulate their father. Very few. Some can, some can't. The fighters who tend to do better than their respective father, normally their father didn't do much. If you look at someone like James Buster Douglas, his father was a light heavyweight. He was, I forget what his name was actually, but he was a light heavyweight contender. He wasn't that good, but he had heart, he was game. Buster Douglas didn't actually have much heart, but he did more. He became undisputed heavyweight champion, beat Mike Tyson, you remember all that. For the most part, if a dad has done less in boxing, the son can maybe do a bit more. But if the dad's done something special, Christian Bank Sr., Nigel Benn, chances are the kids, Steve Collins, prime example, his son was absolutely useless. Prime example. So we have that with Chavez Jr. In this fight, it was farcical at times. It was dull. You kind of waited for something to happen. And once Chavez Jr. did start letting his hands go late on in the fight, he did have a little bit of success. He picked up a couple of rounds. But for the most part, this was just Jake Paul, target practice, Chavez Jr., barely able to throw, barely able to land. And I got the fight I expected. I didn't give Chavez Jr. much of a chance going into this fight again. 4 years ago, an ancient Anderson Silva, who was had got to be well in his 40s for that fight. So yeah, I think with Chavez Jr., it's not even, there's a lot of stuff outside the ring. He's clear, like he likes a bit of the Bob Marley. I think that was an issue back in the day. It might still be an issue. He's had DUIs, stuff like that. Even at the weigh-in, when you seen him at the weigh-in yesterday, bear in mind, this is a guy who fought at 160 pounds, right? He's standing on the scales 200 pounds and people are saying, get some water into him. So what the hell? Like, what the hell is going on outside the ring in terms of the life he's leading? I don't even want to know. But that was that. In terms of what Jake Paul does next, see, here's the thing, right? It's a catch-22 for me. Because a lot of people don't like Jake Paul's involvement in the sport. They think it's making a mockery of it and this, that, and the other. And certainly with the Mike Tyson fight, yeah, that was a difficult one to be a boxing fan. I'm not going to lie on that one. But at the end of the day, right, I have to look at it and say, objectively speaking, is it not in one sense a good thing that we're getting eyes on the sport? I have said this before and I will reiterate it and I will say it again. 10 years from now or so, right, there is going to be a world champion, be he from the UK, be he from America, wherever, right? He's going to get interviewed and they are going to say, and he'll be an elite world champion. He'll be a good world champion. They will say, what inspired you to take up boxing? Where did your journey begin? And I can guarantee he will say, I watched KSI Tommy Fury. I watched Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez. I watched Jake Paul. It's going to happen. Is that a bad thing? Truly. If it's helping inspire another generation. Is that really a bad thing? I don't think it is. So, and it's putting eyes on the sport. So, yeah, was this fight a particularly good fight? Not really. I'm not going to go back and rewatch it again. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video as always, people. If you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Again, I'm thinking the new camera is looking good, the new angle. Yeah, so let me know what your thoughts is. I need to just fix this. It's down to more an adapter issue. So I'm going home this weekend, as in the following weekend coming. And I hopefully will be able to get that sorted when I'm home in Ireland, because I know I can get that stuff over there. So yeah, hopefully in the next week, this will sound a lot more clear. But until then, I will leave it there. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace.